Very good. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this corporate policy and finance committee. Item number one, Daniel, any apologies? So we've received, thank you, Chair. So we've received apologies from Councillor Wen, who's been substituted by Councillor Gaskell. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any declarations of interest for anything on tonight's agenda? No. Okay, thank you. Next item is the chairman's reports. Other than welcome, I don't have much to report. I've not received any urgent items to discuss. Have you? No. Good. Have we received any questions from the public? None received, Chair. Okay. Very good. Right. Next thing, right. Let's just take a look at the minutes from our previous meeting on the 20th of September. Do we have any comments, questions? The committee on the No, I think we can consider those. Take a vote. Consider. Do we pass the minutes from the previous meeting? All those in favour, say aye. Well, thank you. Very much. Very good. Okay, so right, we've got a packed agenda tonight. So over to you, Deb. If we just go through the officers' reports one by one, please. Thank you. So the first one is the forward planner and resolution tracker. So all the items on the resolution tracker from our last meeting in September have been marked as complete. That includes the payment, the grant payment, which has been made to Walk the Walk Family Support Services. Just so everyone's aware, the main items in our next meeting in January will be the final budget report to be discussed before that gets agreed at council, and also the risk management strategy and the risk register. The accounts and risk subcommittee will be meeting next week to review the risk items, but so they'll be discussed there before they're brought to the this committee in January. But happy to take any questions.
Who's on that? Can I see?
That's Councillor Long, Councillor Brosnan, and Councillor Wen.
When you say risk, do you mean just what money we're spending money on?
So the general remit of that subcommittee is looking at the bank reconciliation, any items of expenditure over £500,
which is the risk.
Yeah, and also with the risk management strategy and the risk register. So we compile the risk register of everything that we do, and that's reviewed first of all at accounts of risk, and then it's put for a more detailed discussion there, and then hopefully give everyone here some confidence, and then you can review it yourselves in January.
So risk and what? The risk is what we're spending the money on, kind of thing, or
everything, health and safety.
Oh, risk. I see.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we have the resolution tracker and the forward planner. Any comments or questions on that? Is in 6.1? We're okay to note and approve both Appendix A and Appendix B. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. The next item is the item 6.2 budgetary report. Thank you, Chair. So this report reflects the financial position as at the end of September of this year. If I can draw your attention to Appendix A on page 12, we're currently showing a favourable variance of nearly £40,000. At our last meeting in September, we discussed the increased investment interest and the new commercial stream of the Mugger and tennis courts in Rockhampstead Park. These are described in paragraphs 3.13 and 14 of the report. The new variance mentioned in this report is described in paragraph 3.15, where our proportion for the May elections that happened in May of this year were higher than anticipated. But happy to take any questions on the budgetary control.
Such a big
I think between where the last election was May 19, I think where inflation rates have gone up so much, the costs have pretty much doubled between 2019 and 2023 for us. But I think just where everything's gone up with the districts paying postage, paying printing costs, paying staff, hiring venues, everything's just increased. And I think when districts work out all their costs and apportion, all those costs do have to be presented to the electoral commission, so they are all proper and valid, and then they're just apportioned out our section to us.
When we get to item 6.6, if we could just have a discussion about the interest rates we're getting on our various cash accounts. I've just got some questions on that, but we can cover that under 6.6.
Yeah, of course.
Is there still uncertainty surrounding the commercial income from Mugger?
It's not uncertainty as such. It's just that where it wasn't built into the budget, I didn't know what was going to be received. So everything we do receive this year is unbudgeted, but that has been built into the budget for next year. So yes, the uncertainty is over, and we know we're receiving income and how much we're receiving to give us a good target for next year.
Right. Yeah. And are you happy with what are your expectations being matched with what's actually happening?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. They are where there's some good regular hirers in that they're some of the local smaller football clubs and some keep fit groups use it a lot. So we are seeing a good usage of it.
You're getting walking football. Yeah,
I've heard about that.
yeah.
It's sort of slower football. isn't it?
You're obviously not a football watcher.
I'm not sure if anything like that specifically. I know there's so many different small five-a-side teams that use it. Whether any of them are walking football, I'm not sure. But
Okay. Why are you looking to join?
No.
Oh. No, I like running around.
Okay, very good. So just on this item 6.2, we're being asked to note the report itself, and then we're noting the release of some reserves, which are called out in Appendix A. Which ones will be? Because some of these have already been approved at various councils. Which items?
so it's just purely for noting, just where. So the main change between the report that you saw in September and now is just mainly you've got all those different reserves that were released at council in September. So it's not approving it as such. It's already been approved for release. It's just noting that all these reserves have been previously released.
And that's what's public realm improvement.
The public realm improvement is going to be for any improvements to the town, really. So if we were to, I think it'll be used based on, to be honest, what's agreed as part of the business plan. But say, for example, there was to be some improvement works in the town centre to fountain area, for example, we'd more than likely use that public realm money.
Any more questions on 6.2, please? No? Okay, so everybody's been asked to note the report and note the release of the reserves. All of those are okay with both of those notes, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. I'll move on to item 6.3, which is the second look at the budget for 24-25. Danny, would you like to take us through that, please?
Thank you, Chair. So there hasn't been any change to the figures from those presented at our last meeting in September. What I have tried to do is give an explanation of in more detail in section 7 on how the new long-term arrangement for our utilities has been procured. There was an increase on utilities built into the first look, and following the new long-term arrangement, now that's been finalised, I'm comfortable that there is enough money to cover the utilities. Historically, we have been in a very fortunate position with our old long-term agreement, and we've been protected from all the large increases that we've seen over the last few years. So it's been nice that we've been protected, but unfortunately, that finishes at the end of March next year, or in April next year, sorry. And so we're going to be hit with a big increase, but I'm comfortable that I've built enough into the first look, so there's not going to need for any changes in the second look. The other thing I've tried to give some more detail on is the council tax base and how that's calculated by St Albans District. So that's in section 6 of the report, and how we're expecting to receive that information in early December. Once the council tax base information is received, there's a high probability that our council tax base will increase, and that will mean that the presets presented in this report and last time of 9.11% will reduce. So as it stands, I'm hoping when it comes to presenting to everyone in January, I'll have some good news that we'll be able to have a preset increase of less than 9.11% that we've previously discussed. Happy to take any questions.
It's not a question, but I think that's a really positive statement that you've just made there. Obviously, we don't know that it's final yet, but that's, I don't know if you remember, it's something I raised at the last meeting. I think it's a positive step that we don't just assume that everybody, the income is staying as it is, and everyone's expenses are obviously going up. So I think that will be welcomed, even if it's just a small amount. It's something, isn't it, to help people if we can.
Any other comments or questions on the second look? I had a couple of questions. One is section 5, inflation. So you say in section 5.6, July RPI was 9%, then went to 9.1 in August and 8.9 in September. I mean, I looked at the Bank of England website, and I think actually September was 6.3%, and the Bank of England forecast for that time next year is 3.8. So I think we've obviously had this big spike in inflation with COVID and the Ukraine war, but I think that's sort of working its way through the index, and it's going to start dropping out more and more. Yeah, I mean, they might be wrong, but Bank of England is currently forecasting over the next 12 months, it's going to be about 3.8%. So how would that sort of factor into our budget for the next year?
So it's certainly something I can review for the final budget to be presented in January. I think I say in the report, there's, I think it's 1% of inflation that's either added or taken off. We're looking at about a £3,000 movement in the budget. So if I could certainly,
I would just look at that, and the challenge obviously of the RPI is a broad basket of goods and services which doesn't perfectly match our spend profile. You know, we're buying different goods and services in a slightly different proportion. So the Harpenden Town Council interest rates against our spend, it might be, well, it will be different. I would be confident in saying, I don't know whether it'll be more or less than that, but I would just take a look at that forward forecast, because I think for some, perhaps not all commodities, we should, I mean, even on the utilities price, I know we're coming out of a long-term agreement, but again, I would have thought now that, you know, the spot prices for gas and electric should be lower now than it was 6 months ago, for example. But maybe it's going to still might be higher than it was, say, 24 months ago when we had our last agreement fixed.
And that's the issue, isn't it? A lot of our stuff is fixed now, like we enter agreements, we enter contracts, don't we? You know, the prices are fixed for now. So for this year, there's probably not a lot we can do apart from Dan's kind of projections. And I know interest rates obviously are different from RPI, and obviously I'm sure that you glance into the future to see what we can.
It's a budget and it's not an exact science. So I'm happy to go away and look at things in more detail. Where we have got contracts that are built on specific indices. So if like where CPI is obviously lower than RPI, we have got contracts that we know are built on CPI and can say that it's done on the September CPI, so we can build that into the budget. There are other things, like, say smaller things like stationary costs and things like that that go up generally. So that's why an estimate of RPI is built in to cover those kind of costs. But as a general rule, all of the contracts that we've got built in are sort of a more defined figure, and that's a more defined inflationary rate, and that's built into the figures.
Okay. So I'll just ask you just have a look again at the inflation forecast, and then coming back to the. I mean, maybe you make a good point. Maybe this is more of a spend item than a budget item. But I think the advice from the energy brokers. I mean they've given you the prices. Is that for is that a spot price? Is that for a 2-year fix? What's the sort of the terms that are associated with those prices?
Come back. September 2026. So it will be
Like a 2-year fix.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's 3-year fix.
Yeah, 3-year fix.
Okay. And have you, it might be maybe not the top of the market, but I suspect the pricing could be coming down over the next couple of years. I don't know whether you're able to sort of get maybe prices for 2-year fixes or.
It's certainly a conversation I can have with the brokers that we.
It's probably okay for the budget, but I think when it comes to actually locking in a contract, I think if we're coming on the downslope, heaven forbid anything else sort of kicks off in. We've got Israel Gaza at the moment. That could go any direction. But I would just really I wouldn't lock in immediately to a 3-year contract right now.
Okay.
It feels like maybe not the top of the market, but it's got further to come down. I think being
okay.
The officers are in a difficult position though, aren't they? And I think we need to appreciate that. It's not something they can keep revisiting because there's a finite amount of time that they've got to spend on all these things. And there's 100 million things that they need to be looking at. In 7.2, they've gone to the Society of Local Council Clerks. Presumably you can't just sort of go online and compare prices. You've got to do it in a formal way that's transparent and obviously council approved sort of thing. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that it looks like that's doing all the right things.
Oh yeah, no, I certainly think for budgeting purposes it is the prudent thing. But I think again we're here to sort of be stewards of the public funds, aren't we? So if it doesn't take too much time, just to speak to the broker and just get their advice, and are we, given where the direction of the market. Not just the price, but the structures of the contract they've already had.
Of course, I have to say the brokers have been, it's the first time we've used them, and they've been very helpful in making sure that the standing charges for things like the pavilions that have got an electricity supply but are sitting there dormant. So there's a lower standing charge in them, so we're not paying higher utility costs for buildings that just are never going to be used again. So things like that I've been very helpful with. So I can certainly speak to them. It's fine.
I didn't have any more questions on the second look, so you'll be asked to consider the current position. Any more comments or questions on the second look? We need to vote or?
Please.
All right, so all of those who support the current analysis on the segment, please raise your hand. Thank you. Next item is our plan for the internal audit for the next financial year.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the internal audit, sorry, for this financial year. The appendix attached shows the intended internal audit plan that our internal auditors, SIAS, will be doing. Our first set of sample work, I'm preparing that at the minute, and I'll be sending that off by the end of the week. So we're moving forward with everything that they need, hopefully. Are you happy to take any questions, really?
I have a question. So in Appendix A, item B, this is about managing our spend. Payments need to be supported by invoices. Yes. Do payments need to be supported by a previous purchase order or a work order?
Yes, Chair. So rather than in here, that's covered off by our financial regulations. So everything we do has got a purchase order attached to it. And so it goes through the process of an officer raising a purchase order, it being approved by a manager.
And that's done prior to the work or being carried out, all the goods being delivered.
Yes, okay. And then goods received, and then before any payment run is authorised, it's there. We make sure process has been followed, and then it's sent off to the mayor and deputy for approval.
And you match the invoice versus the purchase order, and you've got sort of goods or service receipt limits to.
Yes, yes, sir.
Very good. Very good. Okay, thank you. Any further comments on the internal audit plan for 24? Okay. All of those in support of noting these raise your hand, please. Very good. Thank you. Great progress. Right, item 6.5 is just sharing the external audit for the annual governance and accountability return, and we're being asked to recommend the approval of this report. So would you like to just walk us through that and any variations or any items you'd like to draw to our attention?
So this is the final piece of the puzzle regarding last year's accounts. I do need to point out a typo admin error that's been highlighted on the front by the auditors with one of the figures where there's a typo which has been highlighted on there. The figures are correct all the way through the statement of accounts. It's just a typo on the A they've highlighted. So my overall message is, yes, it's unfortunate that a typo's been made, but the accounts are all fine, and it's just an unfortunate situation. But have to take any questions.
The title, it should have read 3,858,344. And what did it say?
The same figure from the previous year.
Oh, right. All right.
So there's no change. So yeah.
Yes. They were happy to sign off, weren't they?
Yeah.
Just with that flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, it says in item 3.4 that this was a limited assurance, so it's not full assurance. Apologies for the ignorant question. But
That's the wording that they used, and I think if it was full audit, I think they'd be.
As long as they are using sample, they have to use limited.
yeah.
So they are not full check all the.
Oh, they're not checking every transaction. So all right. When the work last year, I should know that by now. I don't work in the audit
It is still there, Richard.
Okay. Do we have any more questions on the audit report? All of those in favour of passing the audit report, please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, good, right, so moving on to item 6.7, which is our treasury management and investment strategy reports. Ben, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. So following a request from the committee in the September meeting, this report sets out strategy going forward for the next financial year. In Appendix B, I've provided the statutory guidance just to try and summarise the main points for everyone that I take away from them, is that we have to consider the level of risk in our investments, and we can't borrow funds in order to invest them. So technically what we could do is use our position to borrow funds from the government at a preferential rate and then invest them in markets without any idea of what we're going to spend them on, other than we're going to borrow some money to invest it. They're the main things that I take away from that guidance that we can't do. And taking that guidance, creating our own strategy, which I say every time, it's very much the overarching principle is low risk, low return for our investments. A bit of background on our current investments. So we've got our main institution that we use for our day-to-day banking, Lloyds. So we've got our current account with Lloyds, we've got a reserve account that we use, and we've got a 32-day notice account that we use. We've also got 200,000 with the business fund called CCLA, it's churches, charities and local associations. And
Local authorities.
local authorities, thank you. And we've got 100,000 on call with HSBC. The longer term investments, if you like, we had two £1 million investments with Nationwide that have been placed for 6 months at a time. I hope you don't mind if I can just show you something on the screen, just to give you an idea. So this is, I hope everyone can see that. This is the cash flow spreadsheet that I update on a very regular basis. So I've got information that goes back to April 2021, and I'm forecasting forward up until March 25, so the end of next financial year. So this top section is all of the income that I'm expecting us to receive. So obviously April to October is all the actuals. So that's all the big income items that I'd expect us to receive. And then down here is all of the large or one-off expenditure items that we've either paid out or going forward, roughly when I expect us to be spending that money. So I regularly update this to give me an idea about whether I need to not reinvest the Nationwide funds, or whether I need to call some of the 32-day funds back from that account to make sure we've got enough funds in there. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes that goes into that.
So presumably, the more we say to you, right, Daniel, we'd like you to get a better return on investment by putting our money, sort of public's money, into 6 or 12-month accounts. That creates more administration for you, because it's the funds that are less flexible, and you have to plan ahead more to turns out, matching your cash outflows with any calls on the funds in the 6-month accounts. They have to bring out into your day-to-day fund. Is that?
Yeah, that's fair, Chair. And I think it's, for me as well, the risk is putting money with Nationwide and then something changes and we've got to forfeit all of that interest that we would have made and ask for the money back.
Yeah.
So if we tie the money up for 12 months, then there's a higher risk that will happen. Or based on the information that I've tried to present there. What's likely to happen next year is that I'll stop doing the 6-month investments and start doing 3-month investments with Nationwide. It may be that things will change and I'll be able to invest for 6 months, and of course, if I can, I will. But that's the way things are looking at the minute, that it'll be 3-month investments going forward with Nationwide. And just to give you a flavour for that, so with the rates that they've provided me today, so a 3-month investment for £1 million would get 5.16%, and a 6-month would get 5.18%. So probably over a 6-month period, we're only looking at say £500-600 difference.
And you factor in the risk that with that extra 3 months sort of lock-in, you're going to have a cash flow demands, and you fall for that interest anyway. So, okay, that's interesting. And I think there's a sense that probably interest rates have probably peaked at the moment and will probably be where they are for a while. But if there's any further movements, they'll probably be on the downside.
And as well, Chair, I think that's been reflected in the rates they've offered, because for a 12-month investment, it reduces. So just to remind you, it says 5.16 for 3 months, 5.18 for 6 months, but then 5.09 for 12 months. So at the minute, with there may be other products out there, but at the minute, it looks like they're expecting that it's going to reduce.
So that's called an inverted yield curve. So for those of you, if we worked for Goldman Sachs, if you heard someone say an inverted yield curve, where the cost of money with a longer term redemption is lower than the shorter term, because normally if you're locking your money away for longer, you should have a higher interest rate to compensate for liquidity and inflation risk and so on. But when we hear it's the other way around, where actually the longer you lock your money away, the lower the interest rate. That's called an inverted yield curve, and that typically is a recession. Or my son who does A-level, he did A-level economics, told me that. He did get late, but there you go. Okay. But that's actually very interesting. But we did speak with Carl about this at the mayors and chairs, because I was just quite curious to see, and I think you've got a good strategy. I was just curious to see what those 12-month rates are. But actually, if the 3-month rates are effectively the same as your 6-month, and your 12-month rates are lower still, then and I think we're conscious of just giving you the tools to do the job, not to sort of tie your hands too much with managing the operating working capital. Then probably the 3-month accounts seem like the way forward.
Well, can you have two? So we've got. Get this right. So we could have 2 3-month and 1 6-month. So we could get that extra £600, couldn't we? Because you would probably, in all likelihood, looking at your figures there, have enough if you had to close or withdraw from the 2 lots of 3 months, and then you could leave that 6 in.
Hopefully, yeah. If everything,
Does that depend on our business plan? Is that where we get down to?
Yeah, they're the variables where, for me, where it depends on the business plan. It depends on when park arrange, or if the skate park goes ahead, and when park are in a position to give us the money for that. It depends on how any further conversations go with the storage depot in Mechanicsford. There's those sort of variables that I'm trying to factor in, and making sure that if all of a sudden it is all systems go, then we've got the available funds that we can crack on with the project, and we're not having to hold fire for 3 months to make sure that.
Yeah. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. And I do like the way you've there's these 3 principles, which I thank you for sharing the statutory guidance, which I personally found very helpful. And I like the way you called out those 3 principles of security, liquidity, and return, and the 3 things that kind of shape our strategy. So I thought that was helpful. Thank you.
So, just to add to that, Chair, where Nationwide have always been the best institution for us to place our funds with, because they're secure enough for us to put our funds with, but small enough to give us a preferential interest rate. with some of the bigger institutions like HSBC or going with Lloyds directly, it's nowhere near the sort of interest rates that Nationwide will give us. So that's why we've always, over the last couple of years, it's always been Nationwide that's been the preferred.
Okay. Very good. Please, councillor Ellis.
We haven't got the credit ratings specified on the table here. It would be useful to put those in the future.
I can certainly add those in, councillor.
Good suggestion, thank you. Okay, do you have any more questions, comments on the strategy? Okay, right, so we're being asked to essentially approve this, and I would like to thank Daniel for putting in all the work. I appreciate the strategy guidance as well as our sort of gold standard there. Especially. All of those in favour of approving the strategy, please raise your hand. Very good. Thank you, Ben. Well done. Very good. Okay, so moving on now to item 6.7, which is our regular update from the system of advice colleagues. Would you like to walk us through that?
Sure, thank you. So this report presents the Q2, so that's July to September 2022 information. Just something I always say is that highlight is they've helped 136 clients over 494 issues. They're always very good to say, be it giving a few stories in the letter they provide us, and all the figures are in the normal format that they provide. So hopefully there's no surprises in there, but happy to take any questions.
I think they're a really good charity. I think they're really good, well worth supporting. People go in there and if you can catch them before things get worse. I think it's very, very valid.
Well, as a district councillor, I was invited to sit in on meetings with clients and advisors. I had to not make eye contact with the clients, just sit there as if I wasn't there. And it was very impressive what they do.
I think that there are some children that are going to take advantage of it this time. It either wasn't the case last time when we had a report, or I just didn't notice it, but yeah, between 15 and 19 years of age.
It's a good.
But if they could be carers as well, if they're children that age, apart from carers.
Well, education is one of the issues, so yeah, you can, yeah.
Mm.
Yep. If the doors are open to everyone, I think it's brilliant.
We had the Mayor's in charge, we were speaking about having a presentation from.
Yeah, there's going to be a presentation from the, I'm not quite sure for the title, Chief Executive, I think.
That's right,
June
that's
Chapman,
right.
at the next full council.
I think that actually might be helpful because I think it's a great report. Just how it's presented, it's a snapshot of a particular month. And what I think, particularly because I think there's a story here to be told. I think what I'd really invite the systems advice team to do is to provide some, maybe not for every metric, but the key metrics to show how things have changed over time. Things may have gone up, some things may have gone down, but just in terms of
Who's asking for help as well, possibly?
well, exactly. I think the trends over time are really important because I don't think this is a static. Well, it might be a static picture, but I would like to see what's changing over time because that can help. Well, that would help inform our strategy.
No, of course.
That's possible. Any more questions? Comments rather? Okay. Am I okay to note the reports as submitted? Raise your hand, please. Thank you. Very good. Right. And item 6.8 is we have a we have a request for, no, this is,
It's the review first.
and then there's the request
Yeah.
after this. Okay, right, so this is the criteria for the community grant fund. And would you like to introduce that for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. So following on from our meeting in September, councillors they wanted to review the community grant fund criteria. The draft business plan that's being discussed at the end of the month by council will impact this. So this criteria is purely just to note, and then once the draft business plan has been approved, we can then bring a revised criteria back to this committee for approval, but at this stage, it's just for noting. Have to take any questions?
What would you say the big changes then in the type of projects that can be funded? Because we discussed that, didn't we? And see what we can't support, and that makes sense.
So on page 57, towards the top, you've got the criteria for bidding. So that those 3 bullet points there with the existing business plan or from the current business plan. So
Yeah.
if depending on what's agreed in the new draft business plan,
Yeah.
that will change those bullet points, which will
Right.
then have a knock-on effect about the sort of applications that we'd consider.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, actually, but I think the new criteria are slightly different. Okay.
It's interesting, the Community Grants Fund cannot support schools, although PTAs can apply for non-curriculum activities. I was at the Harpenden Trust AGM a while ago, and I heard that they supported the gym equipment for the Catherine Warrington School. The school had no gym equipment. It had a nice new gym, but no equipment at all. The Harpenden Trust paid for that.
How much does that cost?
A lot of money, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, isn't it, to have this fantastic gym with nothing in it?
Yeah. Anyway, the Harpenden Trust was there. But I think it's right, the town council shouldn't pay for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Have to draw some boundaries.
floodgates.
Or we'd end up having to get involved, wouldn't we, in the finances of local schools and
what else needs to
Yeah.
come out too.
Yeah,
I don't think that can be right. That can't be the town council's function, can it?
no.
Very good. Okay, so do you have any other comments, questions on the criteria, please? Okay, all of those in favour of noting these criteria, please raise your hand. Right. 69, we have an application for the grant fund, which is for the Hornby Wood Hedgehog site. Right, so please take it away.
Thank you, Chair. So the full application is presented in the report, but this is an application for the hedgehog sanctuary for 1,700 to enable them to build rehabilitation hutches for wild hedgehogs. Have to take any questions.
Really mean about this one, but I do have a question. It's not that I don't like hedgehogs, I do. It's not that I don't want to support charities, because I do. And I think this charity is particularly good. I know people that have done work experience there and that sort of thing. I have absolutely nothing against them or anything. I just do question why we're being asked for £1,700 when they do have £19,000 in their accounts, which would seem to me ample to cover what they're trying to achieve. And I don't see an explanation of where else that money is being spent. You know, if they'd said, we've got £19,000, I can see we've disclosed our accounts. And that is going to be spent on. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, more huts or lots of huts or a different site or by, you know, investing in another field or, you know, a shed to store the food in because the foxes keep it. I don't know. But there's no explanation of what they're going to spend that money on. And so it just seems to me that we're just supplementing that. I'm sorry. I'm just aware that we have a finite pot for this sort of thing.
Yeah,
And that's
sorry,
why
it's
the
paid
people
agency,
chucking to
yeah.
come out.
Yeah.
If we're not satisfied that they desperately need it, and that's how I feel that these grants should be considered. The money can't come from anywhere else.
That's a very good set of accounts, isn't it?
Really thorough, aren't
Yeah.
they?
But you're quite right, they have over £19,000 in cash, so. You understand, Dave?
In addition to that, I mean, I agree with that comment. In addition to that, the criteria for bidding, it's a bit marginal, isn't it? Conserve and improve our parks, green spaces and other assets. So they offer a natural haven. Does it meet the criteria?
I do agree, it's a stretch
Just a bit.
to the criteria.
It doesn't have to meet all of those, then,
No,
does it? Just
no,
the one.
it's-
So the
it's just
bottom one, I think they do need to inspect, so that, you know, lots of kids go there and they volunteer, and I do think it meets one of them, but.
Do we have to agree to the whole sum that they request?
It's completely at our discretion.
Do we know why there's a difference between 2020?
Grants, isn't it? I think. The donations and grants, just get a lot more.
Yeah, they have £19,000
It's
legacy.
admirable for them, they're obviously doing a lot of work, and I know they've got, you know, a stall and things like that, the Christmas carnival, which is brilliant.
Well, actually, I think the main difference on page 79 is that in 22, they received a £19,000 legacy. Coincidentally matches the £19,000
Yeah.
identified.
Yeah.
So,
I don't, I really don't.
Are there restrictions on legacies like that? As to what they can be spent?
presumably,
That's a good
Well,
question.
this is under unrestricted income funds, page 76.
yes,
Funds, charity.
it would be odd to donate £19,000 to the hedgehog charity, but it wouldn't be allowed to be spent on housing hedgehogs. That would be a curious restriction, so it
Yeah.
doesn't.
It would be, but I mean, it might be something like, you know. I don't know. They are very active on within the community and publicising what they do within the community.
The question here should be whether they really need that money, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's tricky, because what they said, the money is not that large, and what they said, the purpose of the fund is quite specific. But it's rather back to back question whether they need that money to do that.
Could they come up with a presentation? I mean, I don't mean a hedgehog, you know.
It would be great.
This is Tiggy Winkle before being rehab. But if they could give some sort of, is that possible?
We can certainly ask. It's no harm in asking. I'm just thinking of the wording for the recommendation that I'll need you to vote on. So whether it will be something along the lines of, we're not happy to provide the grant at this stage, but following further information from them, would reconsider it in January, or
Yeah, and we could ask whether the 19,000 has been earmarked for something else or how. They've disclosed the accounts, haven't they? So they really need to be able to satisfy us that that 19,000 can't be used for this purpose.
Yeah, it's reasonable to ask that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Without them
just a
needing
one
to
line.
I
do a
think,
presentation.
yeah, either presentation or just a key question to them, and then if they can answer like
Yeah.
properly why they need 1,700 for them. I think we're comfortable.
I mean, if we ask them to make an explanation, we've then really got to give an answer of yes, no, or, you know, sort of like an amount of sort of 750. Like a figure out of the thin air, but
I think if they do it in writing, it's
Yeah,
probably
it is.
easier, isn't it? And then we
Yeah,
can decide
That's
each
what I
other.
think.
So we just say,
Easy.
we just postpone the decision for today and just say, we've just got a question about your balance. Could you explain?
Can you phrase it like, as you have this money, how come you need a bit more? Kind of thing?
yeah.
Yeah, in a very
It's
nice
diplomatic,
way.
it's,
Not very
it's-
quickly,
it's-
we don't want to be very quickly.
I mean, I think it's a word of
Free
course,
to go home.
we support them in principle. Seems like a good project.
Yeah.
But they've got 90,000,
Yeah,
they've got £19,000 sitting there from a legacy that they've just received, which. very
and there
happy for
there's
them.
probably other things in the community that need it, that don't have the legacy. and
Well,
need it.
well, exactly. If we hand this money over, we can't. What's something like that. So
I
legally-
wonder whether the explanation though might be as simple as that was in 2022, and this is 2023, we now don't have that money, because it's
Well,
2023.
that's
They
fine,
might
that's
have
That's
spent
the
a lot,
answer.
mightn't they? Yeah.
Okay, that's them,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are you expecting any more
I mean, are they,
requests? They're in the pipeline?
There's not any that I'm aware of that we've received that will be coming forward in January, which things might
Yeah.
change.
Anyway, ask the question, because next time when we meet for that project again, they will probably have the latest figures, or they have a, performer. Because it's January already by that time, so they
Yeah,
should,
that's true.
they should have, oh, I don't have that money, I just have 500. We ran it.
I mean, if the answer comes back quickly and they say all of that money's gone, I suppose we could say if that is the case and they've completely dried up their funds and the poor hedgehogs are going to perish because of the winter
Well, I mean,
time and they need that money. Yeah.
this establishment was the 19,000.
Constructed by volunteers, we're really
Oh.
paid £90,000 for that. Could have done it.
but I mean, their income for, I'm just looking at page 25, so their income for 22 was just under 49,000. Their expenditure was just under 35,000, so their surplus was nearly 14,000 pounds. Yes, that was including the legacy. So they, I mean, the spending went up a lot. The spending went up £6,000 in 22 to 21. I do think we need to ask them a question, very politely, very respectfully. Given the accounts that you kindly shared with us, which are a £19,000 balance, but at the end of 22, why are you asking us for 1,700 now? Very today, and maybe maybe they've got some updated half-year accounts or something simple, but I think we just need an answer to that question.
Okay, that's great.
But, yeah, I totally agree with that direction. That's what we are discussing. But, back to Beth's second questions. So is it time sensitive? Is it something that we can wait until January? When you put the hedgehog will be dying, then I'm very.
If we
Half of
agree,
the
if
town
we-
council calls it hedgehog.
hedgehog demise.
January is the depth of winter.
It is.
And
Unless
is
you're
that,
hibernating, it'll be fine.
So could we say though, or could we give Dan the authority that if they come back and just say we haven't got any other money. That's why we've asked for this money. 'Cause we've gone to great lengths to ask for this money and we actually really need it because we haven't got any more. And they have less than £1,700, say, in their accounts, their temporary accounts, or the explanation, which I'm sure you will take on face value, because I don't suppose for a moment these guys are dishonest. And if you accept that what they say is true about that, then we could give Dan the authority, couldn't we, this evening, say absolutely, that's fine, go ahead.
That makes me worry about too much responsibility.
It's about keeping people safe as well, so.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
That's important to keep Dan safe, so we govern decisions and this
Or
accountability.
email.
Oh,
I mean, could you-
can we do it in a way, I'm not sure whether the resolution allows us to do so. We approve on a condition that if they can prove us that the money is necessary, and then before we really grant the money, you circulate an email saying that, oh, that is the explanation. If we didn't reply an objection by like a week, then that is follow our decision now as that conditional offer.
I think,
It's unusual with local authorities to do that.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, yeah, I understand. That's why I'm asking whether,
The question is.
asking whether it's possible.
I think the request is legitimate, our question's legitimate. I think if we can go back to charity, how time sensitive is this? Because we could just roll this over to the next monthly meeting. Does that work for you? If it does, simple, let's tackle it then. But if it doesn't, I mean, like, you take your advice on what is appropriate. I mean, I would be happy to reconvene an emergency meeting if required. I don't know whether hedgehogs are at that time sensitive.
Well,
But I don't feel comfortable at the moment approving this or even delegating an authority. I think we do need to intervene. I would like councillors to have their say, because we might not agree. And I want to apply due governance.
well, Dan could find out and discuss it with you. And at that point, you decide which is the best way forward, whether it's another meeting in January or meeting in January.
Because we are meeting in a few weeks on the full council meeting, right? Can we like do a side 5 minutes after that?
Is it worth it?
Keep us on this tape, Ryan. What would you do?
Decline it. I mean, they've got £12,804 in cash. Cash in hand. This is for page 76.
Yeah.
We're not really here to give them money, if they've got adequate resources.
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to spend? That's at the end of, that's June 2022. Okay, so mid-year. I mean, when are their next set of accounts?
Yeah.
Published. The balance sheet's at 30th of June. So the latest account surely must be coming along soon. Or they could give you management accounts.
Well, that's right. So these accounts were dated December 22. So they're a month or two off, or about a month off having their full year accounts for 23. I think something doesn't add up to me. Unless their accounts have deteriorated rapidly in the last 12 months, which they could have done, I don't see justification for awarding the.
There's also things, their accounts have deteriorated that much. I think 1,700 is not really going to be different if they're
Yeah.
cruising through the legacy of 19,000.
I guess the resolution that we make is to decline it at this stage, pending satisfactory answers to their questions raised to them, and whether the committee gives delegated authority to yourself as chair to make the final decision, or whether delegated authority to the town clerk or the town clerk and the mayor to make the final decision, rather than postponing it and waiting until January, just so we.
But I think they would need to demonstrate that it's a time critical issue, because we have a regular tempo of meetings and our whole governance is built on that monthly tempo. I think it's up to them to demonstrate A, that they need the money, and B, they need it urgently. So I'm happy to to take responsibility for the decision. But I think that the onus is on them, frankly, to prove those two things. Yes.
Because I guess with the resolution, if they can't give the satisfactory answers, then the decision's
Yeah,
been
and-
delegated to.
And they have to be satisfactory against both of those points, because I'm happy to cover this again at the next meeting, but that's a month away.
Mm.
And they need to satisfy us, A, that they still genuinely need the money. And maybe you and I can sort of, and that maybe to give, Brian, as Councillor Ellis quite rightly said, maybe they've got a set of management accounts, some interim accounts for the year. They have to demonstrate that the £19,000 cash balance they had this time last year has gone. Curious why. And that this is an urgent need that can't wait until our next meeting in December, presumably.
Early January.
Early January, oh, okay, right, so it's 2 months, okay.
Just,
So-
I agree with, yeah, but, in page 6, 3.3, they already said that the original project date should be 1st of October. And then because of, we are having the meeting in November, so then they changed the project date to be December. So they already postponed the start date of the project because they want to wait for our meeting. So I think that's the tricky part that we asking to like postpone the meeting.
And so
And that does indicate actually that if they had the money, they would have done it already. You know, if they're putting their.
Yeah, we could rather reject it and then they prove first and then, yeah.
I'm not an expert in the construction of hedgehog hutches, and I don't know if that takes a week or 3 months, but I mean, how?
Probably it said proposed project start date, 1st of October, anticipated end date, 14th of October.
So it's
So
2
do
weeks.
we
It's
drop
2 weeks.
it?
Right, so let's just bring this discussion to conclusion. I don't feel comfortable approving this now. I think we need to confirm, they need to confirm A, that they need the money, and B, that they need the money now and it can't wait until January. If there are answers to both of those, if there are positive answers to both of those questions, then maybe the practical thing is before together the full council, to have a 10-minute discussion whether we can build that into the agenda, sort of using your.
It's quite a lengthy agenda. It's
Quite
probably a
lengthy,
lengthy
yeah.
agenda with
Anyway, without
presentations.
It's quite interesting if we have that,
Chair's action.
I'm happy to, if we get approval, I'm happy to be delegated the authority to say yes, no, or something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So proposal for voting, my proposal is that we say, we ask Daniel to ask 2 questions. A, why do you need the money? B, why do you need the money now? If there's a positive answer to both of those questions, then you come back to me and the committee has delegated me the authority to say yes or no to that decision. All of those in favour of that proposal? Very good.
It's also in light of what's happened from other 19,000 as well, but isn't it?
I think. Agenda, no exempt items? Any other business from the floor? Very good. Well, I thank everyone for an excellent discussion, very productive, and
Especially that hedgehog.
enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.